So the left is the gift that keeps on giving. See, on Piers Morgan, David Pakman was on, and Piers brought up the fact that not too long ago, David Pakman mentioned that the trans issue wouldn't be a big thing for voters. And he brings it up and asks them if he still holds that belief. And I'm Nina. This is Jessie.
I'm Jessie.
This is the Panic Button. And
It's panic.
please like and subscribe, join our memberships, and all that happy stuff. And hit the notification bell, too.
David Pakman, I want to start with you. You were very clear to me when we spoke before the election that this whole issue of transgenders in sport and so on was completely irrelevant and nobody cared. Let me remind you.
You're saying Kamala Harris and Biden have come out in support of this.
They do. They support policies which actively protect. They support policies that protect transgender athletes performing in women's sport. And I think that is madness. You're saying, well, because most of these things of this UN report were outside of America, it doesn't matter. It does matter.
What I'm saying, it's a completely contrived issue that almost no one cares about in every single opinion poll.
Wow. Well, the problem is, David, you couldn't have possibly been any more wrong because
It mattered to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It mattered to us. It mattered to you guys. Just to dismiss it, so like it doesn't matter. It's so fringed. Only so many people care about it. But it's in schools. It's in our faces. It's all over social media. Mm-hmm. You're gonna care about it. It's in the White House. Do you remember Dylan Mulvaney talking to Biden?
I remember tits on the White House lawn.
Among other things. That's in our everyday life.
Pride flags being flown on the White House.
The Olympics. It matters. It matters to a lot of people.
The New York Times, the liberal Bible, did a whole piece about the ad that Trump ran, which is the Kamala's for they, them, Donald Trump's for you. They said it was one of the most effective 30-second spots in political history and may have shifted the race, according to her own side, by 2.7 percentage points in Trump's favor after people watched it. Let's take a look at the ad before I come to you.
For prisoners.
For prisoners, every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
Hell no, I don't want my taxpayer dollars going to that.
Kamala supports transgender sex changes in jail with our money.
Kamala even supports letting biological men compete against our girls in their sports. Kamala is for they, them. President Trump is for you.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So, look, on reflection, David, do you want to admit you were completely and hopelessly wrong about this?
No, in fact, in the aftermath, we figured out how dishonest you were, Piers, during that. And hopefully we can get a little bit of an opportunity. So let me lay it out.
Of course.
First of all, I went back and looked at the UN report in more detail. The UN report said nothing of the sort that you said. What you were referring to dishonestly was one footnote from an anti-trans organization making completely unsubstantiated claims. So I will wait for the apology from you. The UN report doesn't say that, but that wasn't the crux of your question. Second part of it, that ad with Kamala, I would have loved Kamala to respond to it. All she had to say was at the time that she said that, it was Trump administration Bureau of Prisons policy that that's what's available to trans inmates when determined medically necessary. She would follow the law. You haven't said that. And then number 3, Piers, on who cares about the issue, I checked.
He said all she had to say was, that's what Trump did.
She did that already in an interview.
That's what Trump, but she didn't defend it immediately. What she said is they should have it explicitly.
Yeah.
Which means that she agrees with it. If she was just saying, I'm following what was being put in place, that's a different conversation. But what she is saying is that they should have it, that she agrees with that.
I think the tits on the White House lawn was proof enough that she agrees with it.
Yeah.
So, but this guy's just a tool.
I'm waiting for the apology.
For what?
That's what he said.
What apology?
Apparently Piers Morgan apparently used what he claimed to be false information.
David Pakman is allergic to being wrong.
Yeah.
Even when he's wrong, he refuses to admit that he's wrong because in his little brain, he can figure out a way to manipulate himself into believing that he's correct.
I've never really watched his stuff. So.
I used to, and then there was something about him that really, really bothered me. I think it was the arrogance or the cockiness. And this was when I was still watching The View and stuff like that. I stopped because he got under my skin.
We had different political upbringings.
Yeah, my parents were for Ross Perot.
My parents watched Duck Dynasty.
Gallup survey, trans issues at the very bottom. The reality is almost no one's trans. Almost no trans people are in competitive sports, and people do not care about the issue. However,
look at TikTok. That's all I got to say.
Go to schools. Go to any school.
Go to a regular store. We can't go to Petco or fucking Spirit Halloween without finding them.
Nope, it's usually non-binaries, which are trans. So it's not the small percentage that he's saying it is, because it is everywhere. It's infiltrated every system that we have. Entertainment,
You're
school,
using old
health.
numbers. Numbers are old. Your numbers are dog shit. Old numbers. Old. And they're old. Very old numbers.
there's a lot of money made grifting about trans this and trans that, even from people on this panel. So I get why they keep bringing it up.
Ben, you burst out laughing then. Would you like to take the first shot back?
Yeah, number one, I've never made any money off the issue, and I doubt hardly anyone that I know, if you want to talk about how few there are making money off trans issues. But that was a very interesting play there. I don't think it's a good one, but we'll move on from that to the second point.
What about the trans activists who are making money on TikTok or on social media? What about Pride, LGBTQ? What about them? They're all making money pushing this stuff.
What about the doctors who charge $20,000 to cut someone's tits off? You don't think they're making money off of that?
Well, I certainly know that they do push the topic.
Remember when we reacted to the doctors talking about their surgeries and promoting them on TikTok?
Yeah.
Yeah, they make money. That's why they promote them. You don't promote something you don't make money off of unless you're like PETA or some shit. But I'm sure even PETA makes money off of what they do.
And once this trans madness started, this is when people like Dave Rubin, people on the right started talking about it and pushing back.
Yeah.
They didn't bring up this topic. This topic was pushed in our faces.
Especially people who are LGB.
If that's what he meant. Yeah, Vanderbilt, for example, they said, and I quote, "You better get on board as a doctor, and if you don't with trans surgeries, you're out of here." They said that on tape and got busted. Then they said that in every kid that we could bring in.
Question.
I'm answering the question, and you may have heard a different question than I did, so you can calm down and let me finish. You look at what they said at Vanderbilt. They said over $1 million is what each kid is worth if we can hurry up and get them these surgeries, because they're going to be on drugs the rest of their life, and we're going to be able to own them for the rest of their life financially, and we can make millions off the kids. They said that at Vanderbilt University. Now, back to the bigger point here about the election. The reason why this was an issue in the election is because Democrats made it an issue. They wanted to force little girls to be in locker rooms with grown men. They wanted to...
He's shaking his head no, but Democrats did make it an issue. They brought this issue forward. I'm telling you right now, Republicans wouldn't be like, hey, let's do the trans thing. Let's talk about the trans thing. Republicans weren't thinking about the trans thing until the trans thing was pushed in their face, in everyone's face, even people on the left, which is why they entered the center.
I know many old school conservatives who have lightened up on homosexuality
because of the trans
due to
thing.
the trans thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, if that doesn't rationalize things out for you, I don't know what will. Because they understand they understand how natural it is to be attracted to someone. They can understand how that can happen.
Yeah.
But they can't understand why you would surgically cut yourself up and take cross-sex hormones to portray something you're not. But they can understand loving someone despite it being a different gender.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's happened. And that's why so many people from the left are hitting the right. And that's people like him are losing this battle because they really think it's not that big. Like I said, old numbers, dog shit numbers.
He's not listening to... he's losing viewers, he's losing subscribers, members, and audience because they're not buying into his bullshit, and they keep doubling down, and I find it absolutely hilarious.
Well, they either can back off or they can double down, so, you know.
It's not that hard to admit that you're wrong and to kind of self-reflect and evaluate what you were doing and how to change to make things better. Instead, he would just rather roll around in the mud and smile about it and laugh at other people as if they're the joke when he's the one in the mud.
It's the hill he's willing to die on.
Fine by me.
force women off the podium and allow men
Like Mark
on
Robinson,
the podium.
huh?
Riley Gaines is a great example of this. Maybe you should listen, and then you'll understand why you got your ass kicked in the last presidential election and nationwide. Actually, I'm glad you guys aren't listening, because you don't listen to the damn people. And the people said this was an issue. And then you mocked them and you act like it's not an issue when in fact it is an issue. So keep acting like you know what's going on in this country when the reality is this was an important issue to voters. It was an important issue to mothers. It was an important issue to moms that have girls in sports. It was a really important issue to men and dads that have young girls in sports. And so when you act like you guys weren't trying to do this and you weren't mandating that men compete with women and men beat women in sports and you weren't protecting young girls in the locker room, this is what you get.
Yeah, David Pakman, anytime someone brings this up, he can't he defends it by saying this is a non-issue. This is not an issue. This is very
so
small. Yeah, he never goes anywhere beyond that.
Yeah. And what if it wasn't small? Because it's not. It's not a small issue to people who have young kids in their lives and who want to compete in athletics.
What if someone came up to him after he was bitching about something that was important to him and said, well, this is just a very small issue. Nobody really cares about this.
Nobody really gets abortions. Abortions don't matter. Women's rights don't matter. There's only so many women anyways.
Progressive libtards like David Pakman, this small, very small percentage, they don't matter.
They don't.
You get the American people and the silent majority that said no more of this radical and extreme position, and they showed up on election day. And if you would have listened to the American people, you would have understood this issue mattered to moms and dads, including liberals and undecideds, and that's why you lost.
Piers, the reality is that this wasn't an issue except for the fact that Republicans made it an issue.
It kind of sounds like Blossom. The reality is, listen, the reality is, no, your reality is, I know that you're the people about like my truth and all that stuff. So I get your reality is very delusional, obviously, because you lost the election. So I guess you don't really see things the way the normal people do, you know?
No, you definitely don't.
Definitely don't. No, it's so sad.
It's crazy,
So
actually.
sad.
There was almost a $250 million disinformation campaign surrounding the issue of gender reassignment surgeries among trans inmates. This is a position that Kamala Harris has been virtually silent on for over the last 5 years, but they took a cherry-picked a quote from 2019, shoehorned it into the narrative.
She said it.
Put a ton of money from a very well-funded right-wing media ecosystem behind.
She never denounced it.
No, like I said. She
Never
could've-
denounced it.
She could have just said, I'm just following what we've been doing. And then she could have further went on to say, I'm not really in support of that. Or I do support it. But she just full on said she's okay with it.
What if she said that I'm just following the law? This was under Trump's will.
If she had only have said that, she wouldn't be in this hot water.
But what if she did?
Then maybe she would have had a better chance. I don't know.
I think in one interview she did say that.
She didn't start with it, though.
Well, I'd have to say that she was in the administration that had pride flags everywhere and tits at the White House and Dylan Mulvaney and his however many days of girlhood. I would have to say that that's putting it in everyone's face, in which case it wasn't the Republicans who started this. This was the Democrats. They allowed this shit in.
They did.
And now it blew up like diarrhea all in their face.
Diarrhea all over.
It and convinced Americans that, again, an issue that Kamala Harris
But Brian,
didn't
she
say
had
a word about in this election cycle is somehow the most important issue in this election.
You say disinformation. Are you denying she said what we all heard her say?
David Pakman and his water.
Oh my God.
Listen, everybody, I'm drinking water now.
That's your screen cap right there.
The epitome of a single
White
cat
man
lady.
for Kamala.
No, he's a single cat lady.
White men for Kamala.
No, but I am denying that it's her position, or that this was her position in the 2024 election cycle. Some comment that she has walked away from 5 years ago, before she was before she was vice president, does not create her position now. But nobody would know that. Nobody would know that. If I could just have
simple
one
question. Simple question for you.
Ben, if I could just have 1 second to finish my I know that you want to shoehorn it in, but you're going to have to be quiet until I finish my comments.
If you say,
if there wasn't such a well-funded effort, I could do the same thing, bro. I can just talk over you the whole time
I'm
as well.
asking you a genuine question about members of Congress. Name any Republicans that had trans flags in front of their offices, and then tell me how many Democrats had trans flags in the halls of Congress. You cannot tell me this wasn't an issue when there were congressmen and senators
The
that
notion-
if you walk the
the
halls of
notion that
Congress had
because somebody
trans flags up.
acknowledges-
They made it an
the
issue.
notion-
They made it
the
an
notion
issue,
that-
man.
Do you just want to yell, or do you want to actually have a conversation? Because I know that you
I
love the sound of your
want
voice. But the
conversation
fact
on
that somebody
facts.
no, you just want to yell. Like this is it's great that you have your own show. You can do that into a camera with nobody interrupting you the whole time. The fact that somebody could acknowledge the humanity of trans people.
He looks like a guy who wore glasses and then got LASIK and decided to grow his beard out so he could look less nerdy. But he still has the personality of a nerd. And I don't mean like the good nerds, because there's many good nerds. I mean the bad nerds, like the sneaky nerds, the ones who pretend to be all feminist and stuff just to get close to women. You know, that's kind of,
That's a very specific definition.
Well, I know guys like this. I've met them in my life.
People is not the same as the issue of
They were pushing the
gender
trans
reassignment
agenda.
surgeries for trans inmates.
I actually want to bring in an extra guest, the former Democratic congressional candidate, Brianna Wu, who is also a trans woman. Brianna, welcome.
The sex changes do actually happen in prisons.
Yeah, or else they wouldn't be talking about it.
They've actually been doing it for a lot longer than you would you'd be surprised. The nurse killer, the one that went into a house with I think it was 7 nurses, and he raped and murdered them all. He got tits put on while he was in prison, but he stayed in the male prison. There's the other guy who murdered that old couple on the yacht, attached them to an anchor and threw them over. Well, he's now a woman, even though he used his girlfriends and baby to manipulate them to get them on the boat so he could murder them. Well, he's a woman now.
I made sure that they changed the policy in the state of California so that every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access to the medical care that they desired and need.
Yeah, so I can name a couple. These fellas, these are fools. They should date the single cat ladies.
The single cat ladies won't date them.
Why?
Because they like their cats better.
But they're on their side of the side of these issues.
Didn't you hear that women are not having sex with men because more men voted for Trump than Kamala?
Yeah, but they're only punishing the men that think like them, not the
I
men
know.
that don't think like them, because the men that don't think like
Yes, they're
them
not
wouldn't
having
date
sex
them.
with them right now, though. I'm just saying.
Oh, see, their math math is anti-racist.
This
That's
is
why
what they call girl math.
that makes no sense.
To Uncensored. I can't think of anyone better qualified, given you're the only trans member of the panel now, to respond to what our two liberal friends are saying.
Yeah, David, I love your show. I consider you a friend. You and the Democrats are completely wrong about what trans people need. We don't need you advocating for, trans vaginoplasties in prison. We need to retreat back to the basics of what we need, which is HRT and healthcare. And the problem is the Democrats have been captured by this fringe left. They've redefined what trans means to all this non-binary nonsense and all this stuff that has nothing to do with how we got our rights in the first place. Ben, you can appreciate this. I was the first trans person to ever transition at Ole Miss, our alma mater. That was very, very different. It was 20 years ago, toddy. And the thing is, the way I got equality and got people to respect me in Mississippi was not by screaming at them or lecturing them about my pronouns. It was getting them to see my humanity. This is something trans people have just completely lost. And the problem is the Democratic Party is unwilling to call out these bad actors. And because of this, we are having a conversation that does not serve trans people.
See, the thing is that we had the transsexuals for a long time, and nobody had a problem with that. Nobody had a problem with that. Not even with the bathroom thing, because it was so rare, and the people that were transitioning were actual transsexuals who actually tried to pass. So it was never a problem. But when these transgenders and the gender ideology started to infiltrate, it became an all-out war on women, on gender norms, on regular people, and it became like Christianity, but worse.
Well, it's a threat to our safety also. Mm-hmm. Because unless you have these safeguards in place, you're going to have people who are taking advantage of the system that is flawed.
So the transgenders infiltrated, and the liberals, progressives, and Democrats were like, oh, well, they're just the same as the transsexuals, so we'll just call it all of them trans. And then the non-binaries came in, and they're like, we're trans too. So then the Democrats are like, oh, okay, well, then we'll defend all of you under that trans umbrella. But really, because there's so many bad actors within that gender ideology and transgender non-binary thing, it made transsexuals look terrible, and it made people recoil anytime trans or LGBTQ or pride was mentioned. And so the Democrats were defending bad players within the community because they were so ignorant to the actual community. Because if they knew anything about the community, they would know that there's a difference between the gender ideology crowd and the transsexuals, and they would have distanced themselves from those people. But they were too ignorant. They don't know about our community, and that's why they're in the hot water.
And that's why places like Ohio are now having bathroom bans happen.
And I don't disagree with that.
Neither do I.
This is what happens.
Piers, I am begging you, on this show, stop inviting the stupidest leftists on to make the argument for trans civil rights. Let some people actually understand this stuff. And Dave is laughing because you understand integration as a gay man. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You've done the same playbook your whole career.
Well, first,
this works. This is how you got
I'm only gay. I'm only gay starting at 10 p.m. What time is it? We'll have to check on that. But actually, you're completely right. Brianna, you're completely right. What's happening with the left is that these saviors, these progressive warriors that you see in these boxes here, think that they know more about these people than they know about themselves.
Absolutely ridiculous.
And by the way, you know, this has nothing to do with a well-funded evil money machine that the Republicans were doing. There's something called boys and girls. And
Ruben's
they are
the right guy to talk about
and
that,
most
isn't
parents, he? Most parents actually want to defend their daughters and don't want them to have the crap kicked out of them by boys. And they don't want them to be playing boys in soccer or any of these other things. That is a defense of girls. If someone, as an adult, 18, 21, we can discuss the age, wants to dress how they want, have any surgeries, take whatever drugs, do whatever they want with their body, most people, even Republicans, don't object to that. And I have no problem referring to Brianna as she, because I can clearly sense she would treat me with respect and I'll treat her with respect. And it's a two-way street rather than pandering and bowing to a bunch of people that could not give a crap about anybody else.
Let me bring in David Patton again, because you were very quick when I asked how you felt about being so.
It's a respect thing.
It is.
The gender activists, when they came in, they had no respect for the community because they were never in it. They decided that they were going to come in and take over. It was very arrogant, and they completely destroyed it out of their own narcissism
and self-greed.
Yep. And they convinced fools like David Pakman to believe their nonsense and to defend them, which led to a lot of American people pushing back on this. It all comes down to just respecting other people. Like, if I don't know that you're trans because you look like a man, and I say he while passing him because I'm not talking to him, I'll be talking to somebody else, and he yells at me, well, now I have a bad taste in my mouth about anyone who's trans because they don't seem to respect me or have any understanding.
I think that he has a great point in saying that people on the left talk about this issue like they know it, but they don't.
Yeah.
And as someone who is labeled with the community, we have more of a right to speak out about it. And we also know more because we are more directly involved with it. People like David Pakman, who are straight white dudes for Kamala, don't have direct interaction with us. They might have a gay friend. They might maybe know a couple trans people, but that doesn't mean that they actually understand the struggle. They haven't gone on a dating app, come across a trans woman who insists that they are a woman and wants to be with you, fully knowing that they are probably like mentally unwell and seeing on their profile that they look like a creep.
Yeah. And here's the other thing about the misgendering thing. Like if a woman sees a guy who's, first of all, if he starts yelling at her, that leaves a bad taste in her mouth about trans people. But the thing is that if a woman is just walking and she's in the grocery store, she's getting her eggs, which are outrageously expensive, and her $7 butter, and she sees someone that looks like a guy but kind of like a girl, and this person is talking to her, and she's like, well, is this a non-binary person? Is this a trans person? Or is this just a gender non-conforming person? You just confused everyone with all the new labels and all the confusion within those labels and not having clear definitions. You're just confusing everyone, and people are kind of like, I would be completely hesitant to want to talk to anyone who looked like they might be a part of the community, because I don't know, are they like them? Are they going to yell at me because I said she instead of they? You know, it's become like an epidemic, especially during COVID. There were so many videos of people, biological men, majority of the time, screaming at strangers because they misgendered them. But how do we know the difference between a transgender woman and a non-binary woman? They look the same.
That's the problem. That's why they have these bills going in effect. And that's the other problem with self-ID, is that you don't know what's going on. You don't know who's doing what. And at least if there was some safeguards in place, you'd be less scared of the trans person walking in your bathroom, because you know that they're going through the proper mental and medical treatment. Right now, you don't know that people are doing that.
Right. You don't know what their intentions are.
Exactly. They could be really mentally unwell and want to do bad things.
Uh-huh.
Or they could just be someone who's really suffering and
Right.
is unfortunate in their luck. And it's hard to tell the difference, and that's why we need safeguards.
Because if a trans person entered my bathroom back in the day, I would be like, okay, well, I know that they're getting therapy, so they're definitely not like a harm to me or anyone else, because they've been going through therapy. There's a system, but now there's not. They don't even have to go through therapy, and the therapists are always affirming. So
And pushing the gender transition.
So they're not helping them. They're making them worse. And now this dude is going into my bathroom, and I know he's not seeking good therapy. So, oh shit, what's his intention? You know, and that's how women have to be when it comes to men in their spaces.
Oh, yeah.
In any time, just because we have to be aware. You know, it's just how life has always been. It's the female intuition.
Asked how you felt about being so wrong about this, to accuse me of being misleading, disinformation, misconstruing a United Nations report. And we found, we found the United Nations report, and it's not a footnote, as you said, it's page 5 of the report. It says, and I quote, the United Nations says nearly 900 biological females have fallen short of the podium because they were beaten out by trans athletes. The findings were compiled by the UN's Rapporteur on Violence Against Women, entitled Violence Against Women and Girls in Sport. The report said more than 600 athletes didn't medal in more than 400 competitions in 29 different sports, totaling over 890 medals. The replacement of the female sports category with a mixed sex category has resulted in an increasing number of female athletes losing opportunities, including medals, when competing against males. The report said.
There's a reason that everyone hates progressives, and the reason that everyone hates progressives, it's not just that they're wrong about all of the issues and they will lie and their only real goal is power. It's because they're also smug elitists. And Pac-Man, I did see online the other day, you were crying because your audience is purging you and you're running out of subscribers and you're in a doom loop. And the reason is no one gives Piers, pardon me, a shit about this woke bullshit anymore. We've had it.
Here's the problem with what you're saying is, it's Democrats that advocated and mandate that women have to compete with men in sports. There was no Republican doing that, and you say like it didn't exist now. You say that it's not happening where they're actually doing transitional surgeries to very young children. It's not Republicans that are doing that. Republicans are passing laws to protect kids under 18 from body mutilation. You say that it's the NCAA that's not allowing athletes, or the Olympic Committee, in boxing at the Olympics. We all watched it, men beating the hell out of women. And then you say it's not an issue of the left. If it's not the left that's doing this, then who is it? Because it sure as hell isn't the right.
Yeah.
And this is why I go back to the point. You lose elections when you lie to the American people to their face and you say, we're not doing this, when everybody sees you're doing it.
And the problem is the left, like respectfully, trans people don't have a voice on the left. So you're listening to this non-binary, communist, Hamas-supporting fringe, and they're the ones talking to Kamala and saying, like, look, unless you stand with like vaginoplasty in prison, you're a transphobe.
The only time that I have heard or debated this issue is literally with you and other people who accept right-wing framing on this issue.
Because he only talks to people who agree with him. That's what I'm guessing is why.
Absolutely.
So the only people who are continuing to perpetuate this as an issue, it is right-wing framing because
I'm not right-wing, so how can it be right-wing
because we're not
framing?
talking about it. Again, the only time I hear about it.
Watch this.
Okay.
You can watch MSNBC. You can watch communist, Marxist MSNBC all day long. You will not hear this issue. The only reason that it's put into the zeitgeist on a daily basis is
Let me bring in Dave Rubin.
A few minutes later.
Man and the guy in the hoodie.
Right there.
Let's try it this way.
Right there on my phone. MSNBC. There's LGBTQ in breaking news right now on MSNBC. Like, I love calling out the BS. It's right there, MSNBC, on my phone.
Dude,
I don't know what that is.
Like, you guys are so easy to fact
Hang
check.
on. There's a woman and wants to fight against a female biological actual woman. Brian, would you be happy with that?
No, of course.
What are you showing us?
As if this is
Just
what
showing you
Democrats care about.
MSNBC right
As if
now,
this is what
just right
Democrats
now.
are talking about.
Yeah. What a second
say
Trump
again?
presidency would mean for trans people like me. Headline MSNBC as we speak. But MSNBC never talks about trans issues at all.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Hang on.
I have a phone too, and it has MSNBC on it.
It's like saying that MSNBC doesn't talk about racism. It's just a joke.
Democrats would get nothing for throwing trans Americans under the bus. Where did we get this thing? This is incredible.
Look, you guys can think it's like some gotcha to that MS acknowledges.
I'm changing the subject.
That MS acknowledges
the moral of the story, I think, for the progressives is stop being so authoritarian and hysterical and better than everybody, because what you've done is you've taken all of the good liberals of America, of which there are many, and most of them are now Republicans, or at least voting for Republicans. And I would like to say to Brianna, who I've enjoyed watching a bit of her evolution here, is that what I think you're going to find over the next year or two is that consistently you are going to have some differences with people on the right, but they are going to welcome you. They are going to treat you with respect. They're going to agree to disagree, and you're going to have rich conversations and find an awful lot of agreement where you thought there would only be scorched earth. And on the other side of it, you're going to find exactly what you have found over the course of this panel. And I think very quickly that will change your party affiliation. But maybe I'm wrong, because I do get some predictions wrong. We'll see.
So that was it. The left exposing themselves again. The progressives. Yeah.
They're always so right?
They always think they're right. I thought it was hilarious that they were really convinced that Trump was going to lose. They really gaslit people into believing that what the American people were concerned about, they weren't concerned about.
They tried.
They really just have their own narrative. I think more and more Americans are waking up to these people who are snobby. They don't have to worry about money or their bills or anything like that because they're making a shit ton of money.
Well, it sounds like he's losing some, so.
Yeah, not enough in my eyes, but American people don't want to be bullshitted. Like,
no, and they're tired of being dicked around.
Yeah, and then talked down to when their concerns aren't important
Enough
to the progressive
for the others,
party.
yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. The left is hilarious, and I can't wait to react to another one. Like and subscribe, everybody. Like and subscribe.
Comment.